Friends, welcome to the Ransomed Heart podcast here in October. Happy autumn to you all. John Eldridge here in the studio with some of my friends. Blaine, Alex, Sam, here to share some stories with you. But before we get there, and before you hear why I invited these guys in, I've been starting the podcast with a statement of faith, almost, a creedal proposition, and it goes like this, that this is a very brutal time to be human. This is a ruthless time on our humanity. And God cares very much about your humanity, that wholeheartedness and maturity are not an option. And we just don't want to tiptoe around those issues. We don't want to pretend like you can skate. You can't skate. And so we're trying to shoot straight in the things that we do, and we do want to talk about mature living. And so there it is. It's a brutal time to be a human being. God cares very much about your humanity, but wholeheartedness and maturity are actually not optional if you would flourish, if you would do more than just survive. And the three of you have actually not been in the studio when I have started a podcast with that, because I only began it about a month ago. React to it. Like, what?
Dang it. Really? Really? I can't skate by? Come on. Yeah. Initial reaction, somewhat that.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. You're right. Like, it is. It causes me to take a little bit of inventory of where I'm at, and am I paying attention to my soul, and am I paying attention to my wholeheartedness?
Yeah.
In some ways I am, and in some ways I'm, there is a bit of, I'm hoping to skate by in some respects, if I'm being truthful and honest.
We want you to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm aware that it's hard to interact in an arena that doesn't feel like it's tapping into empathy. Like where are the low stakes things? It feels like I come home and it's high stakes. I interact with friends and the level of trauma, the level of need is high stakes. I go to church on Sunday and it's high stakes. Like there just isn't, maybe it's like my empathy is just dialed all the way up to 10. That's probably the case having a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. But I'm also aware that like everywhere feels very dramatic and very high stakes. And I almost find myself like wanting to get to the areas that aren't.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah. Where's the fun zone?
Yes.
Or just even like, where's the lower volume zone?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I just think if that were true, that would be a very important thing to understand. And I'm aware that the world has a narrative that runs counter to that reality. If you intersect with the humanist secular space at all, there is a story out there, I think best encapsulated in a psychologist, Steven Pinker, that goes, actually, these are wonderful times to be alive. Violence is lower than it's ever been to human bodies. The Humanist Project is working. There's a Starbucks on every corner. And what you can miss in that is, one, how utterly devastating the banality of that is to human beings. I think of the Screw Tape Letters where the elder demon tells the younger, war is not our friend. War clarifies things to people in a way that it would be better for the kingdom of darkness if every person died in a hospital. But when they're running the constant risk of being killed by bombs, it will clarify things to them in a way that's unhelpful to us. And just to go, these are absolutely devastating times to the human soul in the way that Sam was saying. Like, our environment is just designed to crush your being. And the stories you hear, the media you're exposed to, the things that are normal in relationship, the things that are normal in work, and go, I have a really hard time remembering that it's devastating.
Yes, exactly.
Because it can kind of seem fluffy.
Exactly.
But when I forget it, I forget maturity.
Well, and we don't desire it then. right? Because it is, I mean, Alex, to your thing, really? That, like, we just have to be kind and admit that's human nature.
Yes.
We all have that guy or gal in us. We all have that going on inside, right? Yep. And you do need smelling salts. You do need, like, the wake-up call. You do need the sound of the siren once in a while. And because part of it is the trauma, and part of it is the banality. Part of it is just the suffocating nature of just live on your phone, right? We are spending 4 hours a day on our mobile devices, 10 hours a day consuming some kind of media. That just suffocate you, just drain you away. And now I can introduce the podcast. So here's where we're going this week, gang, is I invited Sam and Alex and Blaine in because we are all freshly back, 24 hours or so back from the field. September in Colorado is archery season for elk and deer and other mammals. But we had all been out elk hunting with stick and string. And this isn't going to be a hunting podcast that will disappoint apparently 4% of you. But only 4% of people in the United States are hunters. And so something a little broader, something that applies to all of our listening audience, are questions. I want to share some stories of what just took place out there in nature, in trial, testing, comfort, adventure, all these things, and say, what is it about that you found nourishing? Because I think there are some secrets to wholeheartedness that we are learning out there, for better or for worse, right? By trial and error, that I want to get to. Like, it's almost like secrets of wholeheartedness discovered through bow hunting really smart critters. So, fresh back from the field, how was it?
Okay, so I'll kick us off. I went out 24 hours ahead of you guys to have some time just by myself in the woods and in the cabin. And it was actually set in a week for me that was dedicated soul care, slow down, didn't come into work.
First week that you've done that since?
A long time.
Okay, just wanted to put that in its proper context.
Yeah.
More than a year?
I can't think of another time I've done this.
Yeah, so more than 5 years.
I'd say probably first in 30 years.
Okay, all right.
And I found myself doing like this little miniature arc, right? So I'm in the car, I'm heading west. I've got an audiobook playing, I'm alone, I'm smoking a cigar, and I'm at like this beginning. I'm great. Like, this is an amazing 4 hours I got to spend in the car. And then I get there and I'm actually struck by how uncomfortable being alone in the woods is. It wasn't this smooth transition into, and now I've got all these, like, got this clarity, got this soul care, got this vision for a book. God told me all these wonderful things, came back in my journal filled. I like sat in the woods for a little while, and it probably took about 5 minutes before I realized this is uncomfortable. And I was surprised. I don't know why, but I was surprised by how quickly that happened and how that was one of the first things where I'm like, oh, I am not used to this. Even though I'm aware on a daily, weekly basis that I need to be outside, going on walks, like needing this whole environment and pace for my heart, actually doing it in this way was disruptive.
Can you say a little more about the disruptive and like what was uncomfortable at first? Did you notice?
I think there's definitely part of it where the genuine solitude was disruptive, but I knew that people were coming. And so I think I was able to kind of there wasn't fear. I've definitely experienced that, like, I'm in the wilderness. There's probably like all of those unnatural fears that crop up. Convinced there's a mountain lion stalking you. I mean, you guys know, when you go out in the woods a little bit, you just start hearing footsteps behind you. That's
not entirely unfounded, because there were fresh mountain lion tracks on the trail that I was using.
Ooh.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Susie did ask me not to die, so, like, sure, babe. The thing that was disruptive was that silence and genuinely just it's stretching out ahead of you and going, I am not used to being this still.
Mm-hmm.
Like every Katy Perry song ever started going through my head. It was just like, I just turned down the volume a little bit on these other areas, and it's uncomfortable. It feels like detoxing. Like I feel like I'm coming off of something.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
I am personally shocked at how much I use distraction
Yeah.
in my normal world. And I thought I would have characterized these things that I enjoy as hobbies or curiosities, or, this podcast and I enjoy watching Liverpool soccer and but you get in the woods, you get into nature, you get anywhere, you get on the ocean, you get into a garden, anywhere, and you turn down the volume in your life and you don't have a cell signal. And can your soul thrive without distraction? I'm like, oh my gosh, things that I described as pleasures, I now see what I've been doing is simply using them to preoccupy myself.
That's such a alarming concept. We talk about being addicted to crisis, the addictive nature of one trauma after another. And part of my transition into hunting, transition into wilderness, was I've got 3-year-old daughter. It's the young kids phase. And, much of what is difficult is her tiny attention span and constant demands. And I'd say what was amazing is, I just identify. First, short inventory goes, wow, I am actually kind of reliant on my kids' short attention span to keep the novelty thing going, where I get out there and I don't have a request to read a book every 20 minutes or go outside or take a walk to the park. And it's, no, you have until evening. You have until the sun goes down. That's 6 hours away. And that suddenly feels like an eternity. That is a shapeless void of space that to try to figure out how to enter it takes usually the first 2 full days of being in the woods.
But aren't you at home when you're engaged with the every 20 minutes of read me another book, Daddy, longing
I just
for,
think
like,
if I could get in the
space and,
woods.
could I just get alone for a
Oh, it
little
would
bit?
be amazing. Yes.
And we get there,
Yeah.
and it is the most uncomfortable
Yeah.
and revealing and wonderful and healing experience.
Yes. But it's helpful to begin there, though, right? So that
you have to.
someone listening doesn't go, well, when I get alone in the woods, I feel really bored and uncomfortable, and I'm not sure what to do with my hands, and I just start throwing things like little rocks at trees, and I'm doing this wrong.
Yeah.
The Eldridges, they must get in the woods, and then they just start meditating, and God starts downloading things. So that's
instantly
incredible.
back in the garden.
I was like ready. So I had a rifle, actually, because we've got this private land rifle tag. And so I'm sitting there boxed in by all of this national forest that I can't go hunt, looking at these cattle that have busted through, going, I am going to shoot one of you because you are in my way, blocking my hunt. This is not what this time is for. And I immediately hit with the next thing of I get past discomfort, and then I hit my agenda, which often is not what God is up to. And I have to my God, I love your agenda. I also love that your agenda is my agenda, and my agenda is shooting an elk this weekend.
Yeah.
Not something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So for our non-hunters, let me describe the experience. There's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of packing. There's a lot of planning. There's food and gear and weather reports and maps and all that. And then you get out to the woods, and it is an experience of moments of absolute intensity interspersed by hours and hours of absolute stillness.
Yeah.
Blaine and I, not to jump to one of the climax stories of this podcast, but to set the stage, we had chased this absolutely remarkable bull elk in the morning, and we had this encounter with it. It was just phenomenal. It was National Geographic. It was amazing, and then the wind shifted, and we had to get off the side of the mountain we were on.
Oh, we had to, in an instant, turn and run the other way.
And downhill through all kinds of just nastiness. There's no trail. Blasting down through, get onto a different hillside so we don't win the elk, so they don't smell you and take off, for New Mexico or several counties away. And so then for the inner period there, 8.5 hours under a particular tree waiting for the wind to shift, knowing that sometime in the evening it is going to shift and we can get back to the action and maybe get this elk. And so 8.5 hours, there's these periods of like remarkable beauty, wow, intensity. It's amazing. You feel so alive. And then there's just these really long episodes of doing nothing. And this is what we're talking about. It's sitting, looking, glassing, waiting,
Oh, yeah, because you're like, I'm going to the woods to go hunting, and you do all the prep that you've described, and you get out in the woods, and you don't see any elk for sometimes a couple of days,
right.
Sometimes a couple of hours.
Yeah, Morgan went a week
right.
without seeing a single animal.
But it takes me all of 10 minutes without seeing an animal to be convinced there are no animals out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Time to go home.
Like, well, I've totally wasted my time going out here. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So there is that that big, spacious, what are you going to do with the silence and the slowness, and what does it evoke?
Yeah.
And for me, one of the first things was just that it again raised that flag of I am constantly medicating through hobbies or distractions or the next thing or even childcare, like whatever it is. Like, it's just, I think I was made a little bit uncomfortable with how uncomfortable I was with the slowness.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting for me heading out on this one. And this is my first year chasing elk with a bow, and been learning how to use a bow and do this. And it's different. I mean, I grew up in adventure and climbing and skiing, but it's active. It's engaging the whole time. And so this is brand new experience for me. But the way I actually entered this one was a little rough. Like, some of that started before I even left, because I had ended up going kind of last minute, needed to get in to do a well check at the doctor. Mel's been saying, you really need to do that. You're in your 40s now. I'm 43, so 3 years of you need to go. And the one appointment they had was right the day before I'm getting ready to leave. So I go in, and they're like, well, you actually need your tetanus updated, and it'd be a good idea to get a flu shot. And so I'm like, okay, well, have at it. And I'm thinking, it should be easy. I can handle a shot. And the next morning, I went to bed feeling fine. The next morning I wake up and I'm supposed to head out on the hunt, and I've got what feels like the flu. 102 temperature and just body aches all over. And so I've already gone, oh, it's over. Like, I texted JD, because I was out with JD on this hunt, and just said, I think I have the flu. This is what happened. You pray, you ask God if we're supposed to go. I don't know.
Oh, that's my favorite kind of request. Would you ask God about this?
Yes.
A subtext, because obviously I won't hear, so.
Yes. I'm trying to hear. It's so hard to hear. And I text another good buddy that's a doctor, and he's like, I think you're going to be fine. Like, here's what's happening. But it was battle to just get out the door.
Yes.
And what I could feel was just the chaos of life. Like, there's so many tentacles to this world and so many things pulling on us. And when you layered on, I don't feel good. I really want to get out there and do this. I know it'll be good for me, but I don't feel good. And on top of it, we've got an event coming up and I got to leave for that. And probably irresponsible to leave work. John's probably going to be pissed because I'm out in the backcountry and we got a boot camp coming up. But so just all that, right? All that layered on. And so I could feel that like, just stay and
turn the TV on.
Seek comfort and make sure you're getting stuff done.
Yeah, right.
And so,
wait. What I love about the excuses thing is it begins like it's not just that there's a one solid like reason.
Yeah.
There's like a litany. Like it just starts trickling in. Like, and what am I going to even wear? It's just like, wait, whoa. That was like a waterfall that began with something legitimate and turned into something comical and should probably be a red flag.
Yes. Yeah.
And yet we do this. And what I want to describe, because I think there are secrets to wholeheartedness somewhere in these stories. So what I want to describe is after pushing through the awkwardness, why do you do this? What is it that you find out there that draws you back and takes you through the difficulty and how hard it is to get away and the cost of getting away on a family? There's a cost that comes with this. And like, what did you find out there? Tell me some stories.
Because the volume's down on everything else. And once I've played through all of my Katy Perry songs in my head, the volume's down internally as well. I find like it is easier to hear from God out there and in ways that he's always speaking. And so like the chipmunks begin to be conversation with God. Like the ways I do or don't encounter animals begins to be ways that I encounter God. And so for me, it must have been, so it's my first night out there. I've got just the 24 hours solo and I see this herd of elk come through and they're in this spot where I'm not going to totally blow it for you guys as you're going to begin bow hunting the following day. So I follow this bull and his group of cows down over to this fence line, and I'm able to bushwhack all the way there, and I'm set up. This is going to be the easiest harvest ever because these animals are on a road and I can drive a truck up to it. Like almost an embarrassing level. Like there's some kind of pride in like how hard it is to pack an animal out.
Yeah.
This is going to be like embarrassingly easy. But
this is the drive-through.
I kind of like it because I'm by myself, right?
Literally.
Broadside, 200 yards. But because all the volume's quiet, I'm able to just ask as I'm looking at this animal, and I didn't have like the pressure of you have to harvest, you have to like take the first shot you possibly have. I've got this spaciousness and this. I was actually really good. That was one of the things that was already going on. I'm like, like the panic, get this and go wasn't there. And so I asked the Holy Spirit, like, is this the animal you have for me? And this cow walks over to the one cow being female elk, to start interacting, one of the ones I was looking at, and they start nuzzling each other. Their noses are rubbing and they're clearly communicating. And for me, it was just this really quick answer. The Holy Spirit was all over it going, no, these are not the ones you are supposed to shoot. Because there was no way I was going to be shooting a mom and her infant as I'm watching them interact. I'm so sensitive to that dynamic. I'm aware that I'm in the woods for soul care, and the Holy Spirit is giving me this encounter with these animals that ostensibly I'm out there to be hunting, but actually I'm having this wonderful moment where I'm 200 yards from them and I'm able to hear God in ways that I'm not in town. Like those things are probably happening all day long, but because all the volume's down and because I'm in these moments where there's nothing else going on, like this is it, very simple, just what's in front of me.
Yeah.
So I just watched them.
Yeah.
Watched them for 20, 30 minutes and backed away. And it was a successful evening. The goal wasn't to come back with meat in the freezer that day, though I hope to.
Yeah. Yeah. Blaine, why do you go? What do you find out there?
I would return to the time part and how difficult it is to adjust to sitting underneath a tree for most of the day. And what I think is really helpful is that people have been observing for 200 years that the pace of life inside civilization is not conducive to the human soul. It does not promote the flourishing of the human soul. But that track has been playing for so long, it's kind of easy to ignore and go, yep, aren't we all stressed? But I'm actually behind anyway, because by the time I got up, my neighbor had already mowed their lawn and my friend had already converted someone to Jesus. I'm too fast and yet I'm too slow. And so there's a kind of renunciation of, but how could you actually know the speed at which a human soul is meant to live? Like the speed in which you will find life. And I think it's really amazing to go outside. It's really easy. It's hard and it's easy. And to go, it's fascinating. I go, what is the speed at which creation actually functions? And you chase elk in the drama of the morning up into the timber, and then you go, okay, yeah, they're not going to come out for 12 hours. Like, they're going to lie there. They're going to do nothing. They're being good elk. And so we're going to, get far enough away that we're not going to win them during the day. And we're going to lie here all day and wait for them to become active again. And it just has this, wow, these kinds of hunting experiences have actually been the things that have most shaped the things that I don't do. And it was after coming out of the woods on a 10-day hunt that I left social media forever. I just went,
2 years ago.
Yeah, I enjoy too much aligning myself with the speed at which a soul is meant to live, to keep doing these other things. And it's this incredible reminder of, yes, it takes me 2 whole days to adapt, to adjust to the speed of the wilderness. And you're right, Alex, in the observation. I love it because I love rock climbing and I love mountain biking, and those things are thrilling and fast. But when you go to pursue big game animals, there's this submission to the way the wilderness actually works on its own terms. That's like lots of waiting, lots of slowness.
Topography.
Yeah.
Weather.
Yeah.
Time of day. Natural forces that you are forced to align with, right? Or things aren't going to be joyful.
Yeah. And that's exactly what was so striking on my hunt for me this last few days is, that whole thing of just the complexity of life, and to get out in the woods and realize, life actually can be very simple. You need to eat. You need to drink water. You need to seek shelter because there's a storm coming.
Yes.
And just that, as you're saying, Blaine, that slowing down lets you realize, oh my gosh, like the amount of complexity in my suburban world is overwhelming. And so, and I can even feel like one of the things I've dealt with is anxiety, and so high cortisol levels. Like you can just feel your body letting down and relaxing, and so for me, being out in the woods this time was just relishing some of that opportunity for some simplicity, not having to figure a bunch of things out, and having just the simplicity of, okay. There was one moment where JD and I went out for an afternoon to evening hunt, and we went and glassed a hillside, and we glassed for an hour. And so just to observe a hillside for an hour. And then I got tired of glassing, and I laid down my pack, and I took a nap.
Yes.
And it was glorious. And the sun was shining on my face, and I didn't have to make any decisions. I didn't have to do anything. And so to like experience some simplicity right?
Yeah.
Is really soul healing.
Yes.
And so that was big for me on this trip.
Yeah. And listeners, this actually isn't something that is exclusively reserved to, bow hunters in the Colorado mountains. The opportunities for simplicity, moments of stillness, moments of beauty, moments where it is easier to hear from God, moments that first do expose all of the unrest inside of us. That is very available. And so this isn't something that only has to be done out there, but the experiences we're describing are so startling and so startlingly different than our normal day that they are revealing. And this is a rough time to be a human being. And we are seeking things that lead to wholeheartedness and discovering some of that out in the woods. So I just want to pause the conversation, pause the podcast here this week, and just let you know, what are you doing with that, friends? Like, does this make you mad? Is this frustrating you, this conversation? Is it evoking longing? Is it evoking memory of, oh yeah, I used to do that. I wonder what happened to that. What is this eliciting in you? Because God is in that. And then we'll come back with part 2 next week with some more really good stuff that we're learning out there.